So everyone, lovely to have you here. I'm going to go into a little bit into what we're doing today, and then I'll hand it over to Elvis. Again, thank you everyone for being here, and we'll get started. So, um, we've been in a very interesting time for social media as journalists right now. In 2022, the purchase of Twitter by Elon Musk and subsequent editorial decisions by Elon Musk to kind of prioritize different sorts of content have really caused a lot of journalists to leave Twitter, which has been a major, major area where a lot of people, journalists, were previously active. After that, in 2023, we were kind of hit with another blow as journalists where Facebook decided to deprioritize news over all of its platforms. So Twitter, Threads, or not Twitter, Threads, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So which kind of leaves us as journalists, as people who are trying to network, as people who are trying to get our stories out, as people who are trying to build an audience, where do we go? And I personally have been seeing a lot more journalists turn to LinkedIn lately. LinkedIn previously has been a platform that was more for kind of professional development and job searching, especially after Twitter. We've seen LinkedIn really increase in volume, especially among journalists, to just get their stories out, to connect with other journalists, and to help build their audience. So that's what we're talking about today. We're going to kind of go over what are the best ways that we can utilize LinkedIn as journalists, what tips and advice do we have, and how do we kind of make this social platform, which maybe not all of us are very familiar with, especially compared to Twitter, Facebook, work for us. I'm going to introduce everyone to Elvis Kachi. He is a Nigerian, UK-based fashion and cultural journalist and storyteller. He currently holds the position of staff writer at Beauty Matter and has worked with the likes of the Birmingham City University, Vogue, Condé Nast, Essence Magazine, Reuters, and a host of others. He is the founder of the newsletter, The Style Pen Memoir, which is built for young fashion professionals. In today's IGNet conversation, we're going to kind of dive into Kachi's tips for journalists from an article he actually wrote for us at IGNet, which is 7 tips for using LinkedIn as a freelance journalist. You can find that online. And it was a really big article for us because like I was saying, a lot of journalists are trying to figure out, how do I build my audience? How do I really connect better? And is LinkedIn the platform to do so? So we're going to have him speak on his own experiences getting the most out of his platform, dive a little bit more into the tips and tricks that he had, and then have a brief moment for Q&A at the end. Q&A is probably only going to last about 10 minutes today, so just put whatever questions you might have for Elvis into the Q&A, and I'll select which ones that we're going to ask. So Elvis, thank you so much for joining us. Can we just kind of get a little introduction into who you are and what your experiences using LinkedIn as a professional have been?
Great. Thank you so much, Devin. First of all, again, thank you. I am super excited to be here. I always like to talk about my experiences using those platforms and also just to give other people, I guess, a room for them to also understand how to use them as well.
Mhm.
Right. My name is Elvis Kachi. Like you said, I am UK based and I'm Nigerian fashion and culture journalist. I currently hold a staff writer role for Beauty Matter, which is a US magazine. And essentially, we are trying to introduce like a new African audience into the magazine, right? Because it over time has been focused on the global north. So think America and like Europe. And a lot of things have been going on within the African beauty space, and we wanted to, prioritize such stories. Um,
Elvis, we
yes,
have
so I currently
a question for a couple people just to speak up a little bit, please.
Okay, great. So I work
Perfect.
with Beauty Matter, like I've said, and we are essentially just trying to introduce the African audience into the game. So that's what I'm currently doing. I spearhead all African stories for Beauty Matter. And beyond that, I have worked with a number of magazines and publications like Vogue Business, Vogue, American Vogue, Vogue India, The Guardian, BBC, Thomson Reuters, Essence Magazine, Attitude, and a number of them. And I have given guest lectures in universities like Birmingham City University and Falmouth University, both here in the UK. I started LinkedIn during the COVID period, and that was because I was looking to, um, I guess, create more opportunities for myself, Right. So I joined on the platform and I began to like write about my experience. I began to write about the things that I have seen, the things that I think people would most likely be interested in. That's really how it started for me. I wanted to be a fashion designer. Like I really loved the ideas of like creating clothes and stuff. But whilst I went to fashion school and then COVID happened, we couldn't continue with that. And then I remember traveling over to a different city with a friend, and because of the interstate travel ban, I couldn't travel back. Can you hear me clearly? Okay. Yeah, I couldn't travel back, so we had to stay there. What was supposed to be for like 3 days turned into like 3 months, and within that time, I wanted to do something for myself because I didn't have my sewing machine with me or none of that. So I began to reach out to a number of publications, and bear in mind that I had started writing way before now. I mean, I used to write like fiction stories when I was growing up, but I really couldn't pursue a career in that because if you are familiar with like African parents, it's always like we want you to do something that had some kind of financial security, and writing didn't seem like something that was going to do that. But whilst I was back in that city, I thought like start to write all over again. And that's how I began to reach out to a number of publications, a number of magazines, talking to them about my interest. They wanted to write about the fashion industry in Nigeria and just essentially, project the fashion industry in the African continent itself. But that really wasn't happening. So I went on LinkedIn because I have heard so much about the platform. Like if you go on LinkedIn, that's like one of the best places to find jobs and all of that. And then I went there. But my approach was kind of different because I had learned that naturally people do not come onto you if they do not see that you have value. And I'm talking about LinkedIn, right? And one of the best ways for them to see that you have value is you continually posting about your area of interest. So rather than going on to just like applying for jobs, letting employers are like, hi, I'm available, I could do that. I just went on to talking about, what the industry I'm interested in, what it's about, like what I have learned. I began to drop interview tips. I began to drop little nuggets of like, the fashion industry within the continent. I began to, I guess, break down some collections of the designers that I have seen over time within Africa. And like, that's kind of what my content was really about. And in no time, I began to get people reach out to me to want to write for them and stuff like that. And I remember one of the biggest publications back in Nigeria I worked with was um, Business Day Nigeria. I was a weekend columnist for them. And I remember so well how the editor at the time reached out to me on LinkedIn and was like, hi, we see what you do. Like you write really well. We haven't really been talking about stories from Africa. From the fashion industry. Would you be interested in writing about the fashion industry in Nigeria? Because it is very business focused, but there really wasn't anything coming on from the continent, right? There really wasn't any stories coming on about the fashion industry in the magazine, and that's really how I started writing for them. And then I just sort of like began to pivot from there. I would reach out to certain editors and certain writers. I remember in my debut for Essence magazine, I had to reach out to somebody on LinkedIn whom I see had been writing for them for a while. And I said to her, like, hello, I see that you've been writing for them. Would you be comfortable sharing the email of the editor that you work with? And she was kind enough to do that. And then when I sent an email to the editor was very interested, picked it up, and that's really how I started to write for them. Right. But also, I think what's important to note is I do not reach out to strangers just, plainly. It isn't something that you do. You kind of have to build a professional connection or a professional relationship, if that makes sense. So when this person, for example, would post their work, I'm always like, engaging with them. Oh, nice article, nice work. I love where you said this. I love where you said that. I think it's very important that you're telling stories, yada yada yada. So when I got into her DM, it wasn't like a stranger who was just asking for favor. It was somebody that we have built professional relationship over time. So that has been my hack. And then sometimes I reach out to other editors like, hey, you work here. My name is this. I've written for this. I think I have a story you may be interested in. If you're the fashion editor, if you're the art editor, are you comfortable sharing with me the email of so if I ask them and they're not the fashion editor, I'm like, are you comfortable sharing the email of your fashion editor? And then they do that, right? That's really how we started. And from there, I began to get other people text me and message me like, hey, do you want to write about this? We saw you posted this stuff. We have this platform for you. Do you want to go deeper into it for us and stuff like that? That's really just how it has been and how my journey has progressed.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Elvis. already I've seen a lot of people giving reactions and claps and hearts and everything to what you're saying, which is fantastic. Um, I want to kind of go into the article that you wrote for us a little bit.
Mm.
And there's a couple things here that I kind of want to pick out. So you talked about, just going through the tips, and everyone, again, we can share this on Facebook and everything like that. Um, some of the tips include we're going to kind of go through three that I think are really, really interesting. And one is number two, the importance of sharing your work regularly and being consistent. Can you talk a little bit more to that and why that's so important?
Yeah, I mean, think of TikTok, for example, right? TikTok is really easy to grow, but also you can't grow those platforms unless you have content regularly, right? I see LinkedIn as every social media account. And I think that's also, honestly, that's my opinion. I think so many people see it as like prim and proper, it has to be this, it has to be that. I don't really do that. If you go on my profile, for example, my picture doesn't have me smiling like a headshot, whatever. Like, I'm just crossing my arms, I'm wearing a cap, I'm doing whatever. Like, that's really how I see it. I think authenticity is one of the things that sells. And I'm saying that because, like, if you have no, I guess, direct relationship with your authenticity, it may be hard for you to post consistently. Right. So that's really the importance of that. And like just to go back to your question, you have to continually post because you really want to be in the faces of these people, right? You're unable to prove to people that you have certain experiences or certain knowledge about these things if you do not post about them. I'm not to pressure you into like, posting 3 times a day. I mean, there was a time I was doing that, to be honest, like I was posting 3 times a day consistently and I grew from there. But also, you need to have like a plan. Maybe, oh, I obviously can't post 3 times a day. Maybe I can do like once every 2 days. You know what I mean? But continuously, like you have to always push out this content because, like, if you don't, and also think of it as every social media account, like I've said, like the algorithm is not really going to push out your content if you do not, if you're not familiar with it. Do you get what I mean? If you do not continue to post on there, like they may not push it as much as they will push somebody who really has been using platform for a while and has been posting consistently. So that's really one of the importance of posting. It takes you to the people that you want to see. It also gives the algorithm something to push as well. So that's like my opinions on that.
Has there been like a certain type of content or a certain type of post that you see that gets a lot of engagement on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think success stories do well. I think hi, I just got a job, I think it does well. I know there was a time, even when I joined, there was a time that people were regurgitating a content that was like, um, I think there was a meme around that on TikTok as well, where somebody was like, so I just saw this dog, and then I had to talk to the dog. I was going for my interview, but I didn't go for my interview. And then I got late for the interview. And when I got to the interview, I saw that the dog was the person who was going to interview me for the article and stuff like that. Those kind of stories are like always selling. Like the people are always very interested in that. But also, I think that like honestly, it really depends on like your audience and community you build over time. If you really just like continue to post as much as you have and like be very consistent on that thing you have been posting, you would gather your audience around that kind of community. Again, like think of it at TikTok. Like if I begin to post about fashion and all of a sudden I'm posting about going to the gym, I do like to go to the gym. But if I begin to post about it, like my audience is going to be like, what is going on? You know what I mean? And then they would not necessarily engage with that content. So it's really just about being consistent and being, I guess having niche in a way, like be streamlined, like these are the kind of content I want to post. And from there, it really just picks up.
Amazing. Perfect. I want to go into another tip you have here, which is something I think that a lot of journalists are freelancers in our network or are looking for opportunities. How have you used LinkedIn specifically to look for freelance opportunities yourself?
Mm. Um, so the platform has made it easy in a way. You could easily just go on like the search bar and let's say for the job you want. And I'm recently learning that sometimes some of those jobs are actually really paid. So sometimes employers do not even put them on that platform. So instead, you just go and write like an actual update, right? So update, we're hiring at this company. This is the XYZ role, right? So that's really what I do sometimes. Like I literally was doing that yesterday, like just go on the search bar, type out the role that you want, put on search, and like, you would easily see that within the posts that some people are making, or you'd see them in the job tab as well. So the job also does that. Another way I've gotten jobs is if you even check my LinkedIn, like one of the almost 80% of the people I've worked with has been from them reaching out. And it's honestly because I tried as much as I can to be consistent with posting. Right. Most of the actual jobs with Beauty Matter, for example, it was them who reached out to me. I was like, I received that. Do you want to be like our Africa correspondent, like writing about this? And I was like, of course. Right. So yeah, it's really just about, I guess, being consistent.
Perfect. I also would like to put out a shameless plug for IGNet that IGNet's LinkedIn is also a great place to find
Yeah.
opportunities. We
Yeah.
post all the time. And if you're not already doing so, please follow us on LinkedIn. That's the one plug of this entire session from us. Um, and so we've talked a lot about audience engagement. We've talked about opportunities. Um, but there's, I think this is a good place to start, which is that how would you there's a section here that's called optimizing your profile. What are some
Yeah.
basic steps you can use to like really optimize your profile to have people start to find it, to have people start to be able to click on you and be reaching out, because some people just aren't at that point of having people reach out to them yet.
Mm. Yeah, no, so two things, right? I optimize my profile in two ways. One of them is optimizing the URL. I think that's really important. I don't think a lot of people do it. So when you open people's profiles, for example, if you check on like the URL, see that profile, it has like mumbo jumbo numbers, like 4708, and like that really isn't it. Sometimes like LinkedIn does not really push those kind of profiles. So that's also something to check. It's very easy. You could easily just, you have to use like a web address though. Like you can't really use the app to edit that. But like if you use a web address like your laptop or you go on Safari on your phone, you could easily edit that. That's one of the ways to optimize. And then the second one is putting in keywords. So if you worked at IGNet, for example, you're like the content editor for IGNet. So you go on the description on that job tab. So like when you put in a job, there's like a description, right? And although they say optional, like don't leave it optional, like put in the things that you have done, like all of your work, like the community you have built, like put those in, but also as much as you can, try to include the keywords, right? So um if you just in case like you're looking for other opportunities, right? Then people who are searching for somebody who has experience in content editing can be able to reach out to you because like the keyword is there. Because sometimes what they do is they just go on the search bar, much like how you're searching for roles is how other people are searching for roles for the people they want to. So they could easily just go on there and search for content editor, and then your name pops up because like you put in all of those things within the description, right? So like that's one of the major ways I also do it. I put it in the description, and then I do it on my bio as well. Right. So my bio is I want people to know that like I do long form and short form writing. So I put that there as well. And then I want them to know that like I'm also researching about things and I also like do writing in itself. So I'm like a short and long form content writer because like when people are searching for who writes, like they're always like content writer, right? It's like those are like that's like the keyword that they look for. So you have to put that in. So short and long form content writer, researcher, and storyteller. But I have a niche, like I like to write about the fashion and the beauty space and also the culture space. So I put that in as well. So when employers are looking for somebody who writes about fashion, they could easily find me. Right. So fashion writer, fashion storyteller, who's a beauty writer, like all of those things like the keywords that you have to incorporate. And I also do that with my posts as well. I don't just leave them on like the description and the bio. I also try to, as much as I can, put them in my posts. Right. So after I write everything, there's like a little tab that I dedicate to another short bio, like another short profile for myself. Like, or if you've enjoyed this, my name is Elvis Kachi. I cover fashion and beauty, da 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 da. I put in all of those things in. So like it's easy for people to always find me. Those are like what's that thing called? Those are like ways I incorporate like those keywords into my accounts and like the things that I bring on.
Fantastic. Elvis, I am already starting to think of things I need to improve my LinkedIn with listening to this, which is good. But no, these are like just basic things like changing your URL that I think people don't
Yeah,
consider often.
yeah.
And it's great. I have one last question for you. I got another request. I know we're doing with a little bit of audio issues. I got another request from the audience to just enunciate a little bit more as we kind of deal with some
Okay,
audio issues.
okay.
But the last one I have for you, so for someone who is just getting started on LinkedIn, started getting their building their reputations, started building their profile and their audience, what is the one biggest piece of advice or maybe a mistake you made early on that you would caution others from making that you would give them?
Yeah, honestly, I kind of already said it, and it's really not to overthink the platform. I think the platform has been positioned in such a way that makes it so scary for new people. And it makes you want to do it makes you want to be so careful. Like be careful, but also do not overthink it. You know what I mean? Like I really don't. I don't have to upload pictures of myself wearing like a suit or a tie if the picture I'm using, like I have my headphones on and I'm gonna upload the picture anyway, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it communicates what I'm feeling at the time and it communicates what my caption is about anyway. So I'm just gonna do it. I think that was one of the major mistakes I made at the time, like always overthinking, oh my God, who's gonna say? Do they think I'm saying nonsense? That sort of thing. I don't think you have to overthink it. I think just post as much as you can. Um, Also, one of the mistakes I made as well was like, jam-packed in content like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, and then at some point I began to get like creators blog, I began to get writers blog. I was honestly burning out, like I was really fatigued because I was going in so much. Not to say like those didn't cost results for me, but I honestly should have been a lot more strategic with the entire thing. You know what I mean? So right now, what I do is I have on my phone every week I write every Sunday I like brainstorm on like the entire thing I want to do for the Monday through Friday. Right. I have like, oh, today I want to post like a link to the work I have done. On Tuesday I'm going to talk about this. On Wednesday I'm going to talk about this. Right. So that allows me a little bit of ease and I'm easily able to like, go on there and just like post the things I want to do rather than just thinking of the content right there and then pressuring myself so much because I'm like, oh my God, I have to post today and then there's nothing in my head for me to post. You know what I mean? So I think I would have been a lot more strategic with how I was posting at the time because posting 3 times in a day and then for a week or two not having anything to post is counterproductive. Right. So have something today. You've made your post for the day. If you are deciding to make your next post in the next 2 days, then that's fine. If you want to make your next post in the next 3 days, that's fine. I think something you always have to consider is that the platform awards consistency. Right. So whether or not you're posting, go on like the people that you follow and you like their work, like go on there and just like begin to like, leave nice comments, like leave intentional comments, not the ones that like, sometimes like when you open a comment, they already have like a pre-written something and then some people just click on it and like that's it. Like some people may not care about that, but a lot of people like people who are very intentional about what they do and how they post and what they comment on and kind of comments they actually write. So go on there and leave comments that people I don't know, look back and say, oh, nice, like this person definitely read through, my entire long thing. Like, they found something that they thought was interesting and they put it on there. That was another mistake I made as well. So like these are the things that you should consider while also doing.
Fantastic. I'm going to take the last 10 minutes or so here, everyone, to ask some of your Q&As. There's a couple good ones in here. If you have any, put them in right now. And here's a good one. Can you talk about the timing of when to post, early mornings or evenings? When are people most like on LinkedIn, and how does this follow to different time zones? And for
Yeah.
example, Elvis is actually calling from London right now, so then you have like a little bit of a difference there.
Mm. Yeah. So I post when my followers are most active. To be honest, when my connections are most active, I think that's something you have to consider. The bulk of the people currently on my connections are either in Europe or in Africa. So that kind of works. Of course, like I do have a number of people in the US. But I have found that like the number of connections I have are mostly based in Europe and in Africa, and like our time zones aren't as far apart as compared to like, North America, for example, or even Asia,
Mhm.
right? So I guess it bear that in mind when you're doing yours. I naturally, honestly, always try to post around 10 a.m. My time. And I think that works because, for some people in Europe or in Africa, it's like a 1 hour later or like a 1 hour after. I think that kind of works. I also try to post around like 4, but honestly, there's really no, I don't think there is. I don't think there's like a perfect time. I just feel like, oh, I want to post at the time that like my connections are more active, right? So I think what you have to do is also try to like do a survey for yourself. I'm thinking like I'm checking for yourself like, oh, the people I'm currently connected with are based in the US, so I'm just gonna post around that time as well. But I also think that like with consistency and like with the people that you have continually engaged with, no matter when you post, LinkedIn is always going to bring it out around that time for them to see as well.
What about, I have a question here. Do you have any tools to schedule or pre-plan LinkedIn content? I've seen some small online business owners doing this, but I'm not sure which platforms to use or if to use it.
Yeah, I think those people who do that, honestly, like the social media managers, and I really don't necessarily have any tool. The most tools I use though are I use Google Docs because I'm a writer, so like literally almost everybody who writes like has to use Google Docs.
Mhm.
I use them to like write my content and just like have them ready if I wanted to. But I also know that LinkedIn allows you to schedule posts as well. I think that's still a thing. I remember when somebody did like an entire video around that for me on LinkedIn. So, if you want to schedule your post, like LinkedIn allows that, like there's a time for you to pick, there is a date for you to pick as well. So you could easily do that. But I don't really schedule my post because I like it when um it feels like it comes naturally to me. So I just like have my topic there, and then when I'm writing my post, I'm just like, oh, I already know the topic, so it's easy for me to like just write them down and then use like Grammarly to like check on my positions, my eyes and face, and like do all of that. So like the thing how I do it.
We have a small question here, which is if hashtags or adding people is if that's useful or is it not? And if so, should we be using one or the other?
Yeah, I think hashtags are important. I used them when I started. I used hashtags a lot when I started. I just don't.
Yeah.
But I think they're important. I know I have seen certain content that I wouldn't have seen if it didn't have hashtags on them. There was a time I was using it, I just don't anymore, but I think they work because I know I have seen content of people that I don't necessarily follow because they use hashtags, right? It's just something I don't use, but you could use it like just do your thing. I think that's what's important. Like, if this is working for me, then by all means do that. It's just something I don't do, but I know I used to do it at the time, and I think it works. Was there a second part of the question? Hashtags or
Yeah. The like adding people. Like,
oh yeah, adding people is so important. Oh my God, like when I started, I was adding people sporadically. I was adding people sporadically, but I was also very strategic. I don't just add anybody because I want my community to be filled with like writers and journalists and this and that. So what I would do is I would go to some of my favorite publications and then I would begin to add their um like the people who have worked there at some point, right? So
mhm.
I just like add them. That's what I do. It honestly it works to be honest because I know people who have reached out to me for work. Like I don't even remember them adding me to be honest. Like I was like I really would add like also be very strategic. Like I've said, like don't just add people. Make sure that like because why I don't really want to work in real estate, so I don't see why I should be adding people who are like in real estate, people who do IT, people who do this. You know what I mean? I want more opportunities as a journalist, as a freelance journalist, and the best ways to get that are from people who work within the media space. So I'm always adding people within the media space, and I think it's also important, like I said, like I've been saying before, because some people honestly may not take you seriously if you still have like anything. If your profile doesn't have like a 500 plus connection thing, like some people may not take you seriously. I'm sorry, like I don't make the rules, like it's just what it is. So, you want to make sure that like you've added enough to leave your 200 and something, 100 and something, because like if you're there, then they're going to be like, yeah, this person's really active. Like there's no point reaching out to them, like there's no point wanting them to like be a part of this. If they see an opening in the company, then they can apply. but they may not be able to reach out to you because you're not there. Like, I guess they just like associate like knowledge and expertise with the followers and like the number of connections you have. So you want to make sure you have like 500. That's
That
what I
actually
think.
answered another question someone had on
Yeah.
connections. Is great. This is a good one because I feel like it's someone you can answer yourself. This person says, "How can one find niche colleagues slash editors? In their case, faith, but in your case, it'd be fashion or culture." On
Mm.
LinkedIn, like how do you find those communities when you're on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I just like I said, like I just go on like the magazines and the publications that I like, and I just add them. And then whilst because obviously they've also built a following and a connection around that audience as well. Right. So you want to make sure that like you're leaving a like, you're leaving a comment on those things. Like it's why I said like be very intentional, like the kind of comments you leave, because then there are certain people who are going to say it and say, wow, this is such a thoughtful comment. I'm going to add you know so it's really just what I do. What that's like one of the best ways to do it. If you have publications that you love, if you have magazines that you're like, oh, I really want to work here, or I want them to give me a chance to like write for them once or twice, like add those people, and then you begin to see like a number of like the connections pop up anyway, and like just add them. One thing I did when I started was I utilized the personalized because like there's a personalized comment note theme that you could leave for new connections, and I really use that a lot. Right, so I'm going to reach out to you and say, oh, I just recently read the thing you wrote and I really liked it. It would be such a pleasure for me to be connected with you. Right, people like that. Like people like to see stuff like that. Like, oh, you read my work. Like that is so cool. Thank you. And from there, like you're building relationships, like you're building all of that. Like that's what I
Fantastic. Um, I have one last question actually on my end for you,
do.
and
Yeah.
then we're running close to our time. And really my question is it's actually about like LinkedIn newsletters and groups, like or their equivalent of groups, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
do you follow LinkedIn newsletters yourself? Do you find them a
Yeah.
good resource?
Mm.
Um, do you find a way to build community? Like what, because this is a new thing coming up, and I think people are kind of interested in it.
Mm. No, LinkedIn newsletters definitely work. I think they do. And I think what's also interesting is like you could link them to your newsletter. If you have like a newsletter, there's like a way you could infuse both of them, right? But I think they do. I think they actually work. I have I have actually read a number of them. Maybe not like the LinkedIn newsletters themselves, but like also people who own newsletters. How do I describe this? So obviously LinkedIn is a platform, and then they have their newsletters, right? I don't think I read them as much as I read platforms like Women's Wear Daily, WWD, for example, or Refinery 29, or Business of Fashion, for example, right? Because obviously those platforms also have their newsletter and LinkedIn. So
Yeah,
those are like the ones I read. I think they work. I think they work. Like I do read them sometimes, to be honest. I'm not a dedicated reader in full transparency, but also like I do sometimes. Yeah.
perfect. But I think so. Coming off of this, with the highlights of like what we've learned today, Elvis, you've been fantastic, really giving us a lot of good information here. And so, I mean, I'm just going to kind of like go through some of the main things. Optimize your profile, get that URLs fixed up, engagement, consistency. This is what I've been hearing a lot: consistency,
Mm.
consistency,
Yeah.
and then engaging with the people that you want to work for or write for or be in your network is a big one. Adding people is a big one. Um, and is there anything that I've missed or any like final comments you want to make on this?
Yeah. I mean, I already said it, but also like don't overthink LinkedIn, to be honest.
Yeah,
Just do your thing. You know, I've been saying it because like it definitely was something that I had to navigate for myself as well. It was the preconceived notion. I remember saying an actual meme about it where somebody opened the door and it was like the LinkedIn door and they were like, what they're hearing, oh, I just want this, oh, I just want that, oh, I da, 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 and they just like closed the door and just walked out,
yeah,
you know? Like, I mean, it's nobody's fault that the platform has been positioned to be like that, but you know, build your audience. I think that's it. Like, don't overthink it. You don't have to be the best, like the best. You know what I mean? It's really just about focusing on yourself and just like doing whatever. And utilizing certain tools like Grammarly. Obviously, like Grammarly. sometimes doesn't look like it's 100% correct. You also have to like edit what they've edited for you,
Mhm.
but obviously gives you a kind of clarity in your writing, you know what I mean, for people to easily read and recognize. So I think that's something to consider as well. But don't overthink it. Like it's LinkedIn, like just do your thing. You don't have to wear a suit and a tie. You don't have to do none of that. Like just post your thing.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Elvis.
Thank
Um,
you.
Everyone is giving up some hearts and claps for you right now. So thank you so much, everyone. You can read Elvis's article, 7 Tips for Freelance Journalists to Use LinkedIn on IGNet. I will also put it into our Facebook group, a link to it after this. Um, Elvis, thank you so much. Thank you for talking to us
Thank
today.
you. Thank you
And
so much.
have a wonderful day. And everyone who's
You too.
listening, have a wonderful day yourself.
Thank you so much.
Bye.